Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Dear brothers and sisters, welcome to Islamic Spirit. What if you woke up tomorrow and the first great sign of Al-Mahdi had already appeared? What if, before you even had time to rub the sleep from your eyes, your phone was buzzing with endless notifications, breaking news, videos, frantic messages from friends and family, all claiming that something extraordinary, something prophetic had just taken place? Imagine walking into the streets and seeing faces pale with shock, strangers whispering, and the air charged with an unshakable tension. The world would feel different, as if the ground beneath you had shifted. And somewhere deep inside, your heart would whisper, "This is it, the time has come." For centuries, Muslims have spoken about the coming of Al-Mahdi, the rightly guided leader who will unite the Ummah, bring justice to a broken world, and prepare the way for the final chapters of human history. But before he emerges, there will be signs. And not just any signs, major, unmistakable events that would divide the believers from the heedless. This first great sign is not like the subtle hints of political unrest or the slow moral decay we see in the world today. No, this is something that will shake the earth itself, something so obvious and undeniable that will force every person, whether they believe or not, to stop and take notice. And yet, even when it happens, not everyone will accept it. Some will mock it, dismissing it as superstition. Others will panic, scrambling to prepare for what they cannot truly understand. But for those who've been waiting, studying the prophecies, and keeping their hearts steadfast, it will be a moment of confirmation, both terrifying and awe-inspiring. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi will not be a secret whispered in the shadows. It will not be hidden in some remote corner of the world. When it arrives, it will dominate the headlines, the conversations, and the dreams of millions. It will make the powerful tremble and the humble fall to their knees in prayer. The question is, are you ready to recognize it when it comes? Because when this sign appears, the clock starts ticking, and the rest of the prophecy will follow faster than you think. Stay with me, because in the next few moments, we're going to uncover what this first big sign is, why it matters, and how you can be prepared for the most important moment in our lifetime. Before we start, remember to like the video, subscribe, and activate the bell so you don't miss a thing. Share this video with your loved ones, as this knowledge can literally change a life. To understand the first great sign of Al-Mahdi, we must first step back and see where it fits in the vast tapestry of Islamic eschatology, the branch of knowledge that deals with the end times and the events that will unfold before the day of judgment. The figure of Al-Mahdi, literally, the rightly guided one, occupies a central place in Muslim belief about the final era of humanity. Though not mentioned explicitly in the Quran, his coming is deeply rooted in the Hadith literature, where Prophet Muhammad described him in detail. He will be from the descendants of the Prophet, specifically from the lineage of Fatima, the beloved daughter of the Messenger of Allah. His name will mirror that of the Prophet, and his father's name will match the Prophet's father's name, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Al-Mahdi is prophesied to appear at a time when the world is drowning in injustice and oppression. Wars will have shaken nations, corruption will be widespread, and the hearts of many will have turned cold. He will not be a political figure rising through ambition. Rather, he will be chosen and prepared by Allah, emerging as a humble servant until events force his leadership upon him. Once he appears, he will unite the Muslim Ummah under a single banner, establish justice, and lead them through some of the most turbulent times in history. The importance of signs. The Prophet did not leave us in darkness regarding the events that will herald Al-Mahdi's arrival. In numerous narrations, he outlined minor signs, gradual moral and societal changes, and major signs, which are dramatic, unmistakable events. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi belongs to that latter category. It is significant because it marks the transition point from the long anticipation phase into the countdown of the final era. From that moment onward, the prophetic timeline accelerates, with events following one after the other. Sunni and Shia perspectives. While the concept of Al-Mahdi is shared between Sunni and Shia Muslims, there are differences in detail. Sunni traditions portray him as a future leader who has not yet been born, whose mission will be to revive the Sunnah and establish justice. In contrast, 12-verse Shia Muslims believe that the Mahdi, Muhammad ibn al-Hasan al-Askari, was born in the 9th century and has been an occultation. hidden from the world until Allah permits his reappearance. Despite these differences, both traditions agree on several key points. His appearance will be at a time of great turmoil. He will restore justice and truth. His coming will be preceded by clear, divinely ordained signs. Why the first sign matters. The first big sign is not just a signal. It's a dividing line in history. Think of it as a trigger that sets everything in motion. For those who have studied the prophecies, it will be a moment of confirmation, but also of urgency. It will strip away the luxury of spiritual procrastination. From the moment it appears, the rest of the events, the Mahdi's pledge of allegiance, the rise of the Dajjal, the descent of Isa, and the final trials will begin to unfold. The prophet often spoke about the signs in a way that balanced warning with hope. Yes, these are times of great fitna trial, but there are also moments when faith shines brightest. For believers, recognizing the first big sign is not about curiosity. It's about preparation. It's about being spiritually awake so that when the world is shaken, your heart remains firm. And so, before we reveal exactly what this first big sign is, we must first examine the evidence from authentic narrations and see how the scholars have interpreted them over centuries. Because in matters of prophecy, clarity is everything, and deception will be one of the greatest tests of the end times. When speaking about the signs of the end times, especially something as momentous as the first big sign of Al-Mahdi, accuracy is not just important, it's essential. Throughout Islamic history, scholars have been deeply cautious about narrations related to the unseen, because an error here can mislead countless believers. The primary sources for information about Al-Mahdi are the Hadith collections, and to a lesser extent, scholarly commentaries that draw from them. Among the most cited Sunni works are Sunan Abu Dawud, Jami al-Tirmidhi, Sunan Ibn Majah, and Musnad Ahmad ibn Hanbal. While al-Bukhari and Muslim Sahih collections contain only a handful of indirect references, many authentic reports about Al-Mahdi are preserved in other well-vetted Hadith compilations. Narrations on the first sign, one commonly referenced narration, recorded in Sunan Abu Dawud, describes that Al-Mahdi will be given the pledge of allegiance between the Rukn and Makam in Makkah, between the Black Stone and the station of Ibrahim. This event, however, does not happen in isolation. Several scholars, such as Ibn Kathir and Al-Bidayah wal Nihaya, note that this moment will be preceded by a great sign, a divine event or crisis that compels the believers to rally to him. Some narrations speak of a major earthly or celestial sign, while others refer to a great conflict or instability that will make the arrival of the Mahdi unavoidable. Because hadith wording can differ depending on the chain of transmission, it's critical to analyze the isnad, chain of narrators, for authenticity. Reliability of narrators, isnad. The science of hadith authentication, known as ilm al-hadith, involves a rigorous examination of each narrator in the chain. Were they trustworthy in character? Were they precise in their memory and transmission? Did they live in the same era and have the opportunity to meet the person they claimed to narrate from? If a chain of narrators meets these criteria, and the text of the hadith does not contradict established Islamic teachings, it is graded as sahih, authentic. If it has minor weaknesses, it may be graded as hasan, good, and if it has significant flaws, it is da'if, weak. Differences between authentic and weak reports. In discussing the first sign of Al-Mahdi, some narrations are extremely popular in public circles, but are weak or fabricated according to hadith scholars. Weak narrations can sometimes still be mentioned for moral lessons, provided they do not contradict sound teachings, but they cannot form the basis for defining a critical event in prophecy. For example, certain dramatic details about the first sign come from sources that scholars like Al-Albani, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and others have declared weak due to missing or unreliable narrators. Responsible scholarship means we build our understanding primarily on Sahih and Hasan reports, while noting where weaker reports exist but are not decisive. Why this matters for the first sign. If we rely on weak or fabricated reports, we risk mistaking ordinary events for prophetic signs, or worse, being deceived by false claimants. The prophet warned of 30 false messiahs, Dajjals, who would appear before the actual Dajjal, each claiming authority they do not have. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi is too important to be left to rumor or unreliable traditions. In the next part of this journey, We will look closely at what the authentic narrations actually say about this first sign. And you may be surprised to find that while the wording is concise, the implications are vast. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi is not a quiet whisper in the night, nor a subtle shift that only the learned can detect. It is a thunderclap in the middle of a silent sky, an event so unmistakable that it will grip the hearts of believers and shake the confidence of the heedless. Step-by-step unfolding of the event. The world at this time will already be in turmoil. Political instability will be the norm, not the exception. Nations will be collapsing under the weight of corruption and internal strife. In the Arabian Peninsula, tensions will boil over into open conflict. A great dispute over succession after the death of a leader. 3 brothers or factions will vie for control, each claiming legitimacy. This power struggle will not remain behind closed palace doors. It will spill into the streets, the media, and the mosques. It is during this tense and unstable period that the first big sign emerges, the appearance of a divinely ordained event in Mecca that forces the believers to rally. In authentic narrations, this is connected to the moment when Al-Mahdi will be sought out and pledged allegiance to between the Black Stone and the station of Ibrahim in the sacred mosque. But here's what makes it the big sign, the trigger before that pledge. According to multiple hadith, an army will be sent from the north, traditionally identified as Sham or Syria, to attack Mecca and seize the Mahdi. Before they reach the city, Allah will cause the earth to swallow them up in the desert of Al-Baida, a flat plain between Mecca and Medina. This event, sudden, public, and undeniable, will be witnessed by travelers, locals, and in our modern world, broadcast instantly to every corner of the globe. Location, timeline, and appearance. The location of Al-Baida is explicitly mentioned in the Hadith. It lies outside Mecca on the road to Medina. In the Prophet's time, this was a stretch of land known to all in the Hijaz. Today, it is still identifiable, making this prophecy geographically precise. The timeline unfolds rapidly. A ruler dies in the Hijaz. A dispute erupts between leaders or factions. The Mahdi, reluctant to take leadership, is identified by the pious and pressured into accepting the pledge in Mecca. An army is dispatched to seize him. Before reaching the city, the army is swallowed by the earth in a sudden, divine act of destruction. This last event is what the scholars regard as the first major public sign, because it confirms Al-Mahdi's identity beyond human manipulation. No political strategist, no military power, and no worldly force can replicate a supernatural event on this scale. How believers and the world react. The immediate reaction among believers will be awe and renewed faith. Those who have studied the signs will recognize the moment and understand that the prophetic timeline has shifted into high gear. Many will rush to Mecca to pledge allegiance to the Mahdi, as the Hadith says. People will come to him from the east, carrying black banners, though this too is interpreted carefully by scholars to avoid false movements. On the other hand, skeptics will scramble to explain it away. Some will claim it was an earthquake, others a freak sinkhole. In an age dominated by technology and misinformation, countless theories will swirl on social media. Conspiracy channels will explode with debates. Was it natural? Was it staged? Is this really the Mahdi? But the believers will know, because the description matches exactly what the Prophet foretold over 1,400 years ago. Symbolic meaning of this sign. The swallowing of the army is more than just a dramatic act. It is a divine endorsement. In a world where leadership is often taken by force, Allah himself will protect the Mahdi from capture before he even begins his mission. It is a clear message to the world. This leader is under divine protection, and his rise is part of a decree that no human can overturn. It also serves as a filter, separating those whose faith rests on the unseen from those who demand constant worldly proof. Those who recognize the sign will align themselves with the truth, while others will hesitate until it is too late. From this moment onward, the Mahdi's leadership will no longer be a matter of rumor or speculation. The pledge in Mecca, following this miraculous event, will mark the start of his mission. It is the point after which history accelerates toward the appearance of the Dajjal, the descent of Isa, Ibi, and Maryam, and the final trials before the Day of Judgment. The first big sign is therefore not just the beginning of the Mahdi's era. It is the first domino in a chain of events that will change the world forever. One of the most remarkable aspects of Allah's decree is that history often moves in patterns. While no past event is identical to the future coming of Al-Mahdi, Islamic history is filled with moments where divine intervention, moral revival, and political transformation converge, preparing the way for major changes. These parallels help us understand how Allah's plan unfolds and why the first big sign is entirely consistent with His Sunnah, established way, in dealing with His creation. Similar events in Islamic history. In the early days of Islam, there were moments when Allah protected His chosen servants through extraordinary means. The most famous example is the Battle of the Trench, Khandak, when Medina was surrounded by enemy forces. The Muslims, vastly outnumbered, relied on both strategy and divine aid. The Quran itself describes how Allah sent fierce winds and forces unseen to scatter the enemy, an intervention that secured the survival of the Muslim community. Another parallel is the Battle of Badr. Outnumbered 3-1, the believers were promised divine assistance, and indeed, unseen angels fought alongside them. While the swallowing of the army in Al-Bayda is not a battle in the conventional sense, it shares the same essence. Allah directly intervenes to protect a divinely appointed mission before it can be destroyed. Political and spiritual conditions before major changes. History also shows that divine intervention often comes at times of deep political fragmentation. Before Salahuddin al-Ayyubi reclaimed Jerusalem, the Muslim world was fractured into rival states and plagued by internal disputes. His rise was preceded by a unifying mission that required moral revival as much as military strength. Likewise, before the Abbasid Revolution replaced the Umayyad dynasty, the Muslim community faced decades of political unrest and competing claims to leadership. In these turbulent conditions, ordinary believers longed for justice and stability, conditions strikingly similar to those described before the appearance of Al-Mahdi. Lessons learned from past events. The recurring lesson in all these episodes is that Allah's help arrives when the believers are in desperate need and when the appointed servant's mission is vital to the preservation of truth. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi, the destruction of the approaching army, mirrors this principle perfectly. It is not merely about protecting one man, but about safeguarding the divine plan for the final era of human history. Another important lesson is that such interventions are unmistakable to those with faith, but can be dismissed by those whose hearts are hardened. Just as courageous leaders explain away the miracles of the prophet as magic or illusions, so too will some people in the end times try to rationalize or deny the first big sign. Finally, history reminds us that divine aid is never a substitute for personal preparation. Even after the miraculous protection at Badr or during the siege of Medina, the believers still had to act, to strategize, to fight, to stand firm. In the same way, recognizing the first big sign of Al-Mahdi will mean nothing for those who are spiritually unprepared to follow him and face the trials ahead. When the first big sign of Al-Mahdi takes place, the miraculous swallowing of the approaching army in the desert of Al-Bayda, it will not remain a local event known only to the people of Mecca and Medina. Unlike in past centuries, today's world is wired together in real time. What happens in one remote location can be live-streamed to millions within seconds. How the world might respond. The moment it happens, eyewitnesses will capture it on their phones. Videos will flood platforms like X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Satellite news networks will scramble to send reporters to the scene. Drone footage will circulate, showing the gaping wound in the earth where the army vanished. Commentators will be divided, some speaking of divine miracle, others rushing to frame it as a geological disaster. Governments will issue statements, some expressing condolences, others quietly alarmed at the religious implications. The geopolitical ripple effect will be instant. Questions will arise in parliaments and presidential offices. Who is this man in Mecca that an army was sent to capture? And why do millions now believe he is the prophesied Mahdi? The role of social media and fake news. In our digital age, truth and lies travel side by side. Genuine eyewitness testimony will compete with fabricated videos, AI-generated proof, and doctored images. Conspiracy theorists will seize a moment, some claiming the event was orchestrated using advanced technology, others saying it was a ploy to install a new global religious leader. Hashtags like #Mahdi, hashtag beta event, and hashtag miracle or myth will trend worldwide. Deepfake technology will make it even harder to discern fact from fiction. A single viral clip could mislead millions. Just as quickly as belief will spread among some, doubt will be sown among others. The Quranic warning, and indeed he will surely mislead most of you, will feel chillingly relevant in an era where deception is only a click away. Believers versus skeptics. For the believers, especially those who have studied the authentic hadith, this will be a moment of awe, humility, and renewed determination. Many will make plans to travel to Mecca to pledge allegiance, fulfilling prophetic guidance that believers from distant lands will come to him. Mosques will fill with worshipers discussing the event, reciting Quran, and praying for steadfastness. For skeptics, however, the narrative will be different. Some will dismiss it entirely. It was just an earthquake. Others will mock another religious conspiracy to gain followers. Still others will remain uncertain, intrigued but unwilling to commit. Then there will be a dangerous middle group, opportunists who see the Mahdi's growing influence as a political or economic threat. They will work to undermine him, either by discrediting his message or by attempting to control the narrative. Their actions will lay the groundwork for the greater opposition that will arise in the years ahead, culminating in the appearance of the Dajjal. Why this modern reaction matters. The prophet described the end times as an era of great confusion, fitna, where falsehood would be made to look like truth and truth like falsehood. In the 21st century, this confusion will be amplified by global communication networks. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi will thus be both a miracle and a test, a clear proof for those with faith, and an open door to misguidance to those chasing worldly explanations. From this moment on, the Mahdi will no longer be an unknown figure. His name, face, and mission will dominate headlines, social media feeds, and religious discussions across the globe. The countdown will have begun, and the world will never return to what it was before. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi is not an isolated miracle. In the prophetic timeline, it acts as a gateway, the moment that shifts humanity from the long buildup of minor signs into the rapid unfolding of the major signs. To understand its weight, we need to see it as part of the chain of events described by the prophet, signs before the first big sign. For centuries, Muslims have been witnessing many of the minor signs: widespread injustice and corruption, leaders betraying the trust of the people, wealth concentrated in the hands of the few, increase in immorality and shamelessness, frequent natural disasters, and social unrest. In the Arabian Peninsula specifically, one key precursor mentioned in Hadith is the death of a ruler, followed by a fierce dispute among three brothers or factions over succession. This internal turmoil paves the way for the Mahdi's reluctant acceptance of leadership in Mecca, the first big sign as the turning point. When the army sent against the Mahdi is swallowed up in the desert of Al-Beta, it will serve as a divine endorsement of his mission. From that moment, the believers will rally to him from across the world. The Mahdi will begin consolidating leadership over the Muslim Ummah. Opposing forces will shift from dismissive mockery to active resistance. The Hadith suggests that following this event, the Mahdi will lead the Muslims through a series of monumental battles, including the Malhama al-Kubra, the Great Battle, before the rise of the Dajjal. Relation to other major events. This sign directly sets the stage for the appearance of the Dajjal Antichrist. The Dajjal's rise will not happen in a vacuum. It will occur in a world already shaken by conflict, miracles, and shifts in power. The Mahdi's victories against his enemies will provoke greater opposition until the Dajjal emerges, claiming divine status and seeking to mislead all of humanity. It is during this period that Isa ibn Maryam will descend from the heavens, another major sign, to slay the Dajjal and pray behind the Mahdi, symbolizing the unity of the believers and the divine legitimacy of the Mahdi's leadership. The prophetic sequence, in summary: minor signs accumulate over centuries. Death of a ruler in the Hijaz, and a dispute among leaders. Mahdi is sought out in Mecca and pledged allegiance. Army sent against him is swallowed in Al-Beta, first big sign. Global recognition and consolidation of the Mahdi's leadership. Major battles and eventual rise of the Dajjal. Descent of Isa, destruction of the Dajjal, and final period of justice. The first big sign is therefore not simply the start of the Mahdi story. It is the spark that ignites the final act of human history before the Day of Judgment. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi is not meant to be just a piece of fascinating prophecy. It is meant to wake us up. The prophet did not describe these events to satisfy curiosity. He described them so we could prepare, protect our faith, and stand firm when the world is engulfed in confusion. 1. Preparing spiritually and morally. The most important preparation for the end times is not physical stockpiles or strategic plans. It is Iman, faith, and taqwa, God consciousness. When the prophet spoke of the fitna trials of the last days, he emphasized holding on to the Quran and Sunnah, even when others let them go. Spiritual preparation means maintaining daily salah with sincerity, increasing Quran recitation and reflection, making regular dhikr to keep the heart alive, seeking halal sustenance and avoiding doubtful earnings. When the first big sign appears, events will accelerate. There will be little time to get ready. If we are spiritually asleep, the prophet warned that a person may wake up as a believer but end the day in disbelief, and vice versa, because the trials will be that intense. 2. Avoiding arrogance and heedlessness. One of the greatest dangers in the end times is arrogance. Some will think they are too intelligent to be deceived, or too strong to fall into misguidance. Yet the Dajjal's trial, which will follow the Mahdi's era, will be so severe that even the most pious will fear for themselves. The Quran warns, do they feel secure against the plan of Allah? But none feel secure against the plan of Allah except the losing people. Surah Al-Araf 7 hours, 99 minutes. Heedlessness, ghafla, is another trap. Many today know about the Mahdi as a concept, but treat it as distant, irrelevant, or a matter for future generations. The truth is, every generation should prepare as if these events could unfold in their lifetime. Because when the first big sign comes, hesitation will be costly. 3. Strengthening faith during times of turmoil. The prophet gave practical guidance for staying steadfast when trials strike. Stay with the Jama'ah, the united body of believers, and their leader. Isolation can make one vulnerable to doubt and misguidance. Avoid unnecessary exposure to fitna. Not every trending debate or viral video is worth your attention. Seek knowledge. Understanding the authentic hadith protects you from false claimants and fabricated signs. During the Mahdi's time, the world will be divided not just along political lines, but along lines of faith and disbelief, truth and falsehood. Recognizing the first big sign will require a heart that trusts in Allah's promise more than it trusts in the noise of the world. 4. The warning of missed opportunity. When the army is swallowed in Al-Beta, the world will split into 2 camps. Those who see it as a fulfillment of prophecy and move toward the Mahdi, and those who explain away or remain passive. For the second group, the danger is that the rapid sequence of events will leave them no time to reconsider. Just as the people of Nah realized the truth only when the flood began, there will be people who recognize the Mahdi only when the Dajjal appears. But by then, the trials will be far more dangerous. 5. The ultimate lesson. The story of the first big sign is a reminder of Allah's power to protect His chosen servants and fulfill His promises exactly as foretold. It should fill the believer with hope that even in the darkest times, Allah's light will prevail, but also with urgency, knowing that when the sign appears, the clock to the final hour will be ticking faster than ever before. The Prophet told us, "Be in the world as if you are a stranger or a traveler." Bukhari, we are not here to get comfortable. We are here to prepare for the journey back to Allah. And the first big sign of Al-Mahdi will be one of the loudest reminders in history that the journey is nearing its end. The first big sign of Al-Mahdi is more than a fascinating prophecy. It is a turning point in human history. When it appears, there will be no mistaking that the clock of the final hour has accelerated. And yet, the purpose of knowing about it is not to feed our curiosity, but to guide our actions before it arrives. Why it matters. We are living in an age of rapid change, political chaos, and moral confusion. These are the very conditions in which false claimants thrive and truth is often ridiculed. Knowing the authentic signs helps you distinguish between what is from Allah and what is from deception. The first sign will not simply be news. It will demand a response. Those who recognize it and move toward truth will be walking the path the Prophet described. Those who ignore it or explain away risk being swept into a chain of trials more intense than anything before. Your responsibility now. Reflect deeply on the narrations you have heard today. Share this knowledge with family and friends, so they too are not caught unprepared. Strengthen your connection to Allah now, not later. This is not about fear, it is about readiness. Fear fades, faith lasts, and only the faithful will stand firm when the world shakes. The Prophet said, "Whoever dies without recognizing the Imam of his time dies the death of Jahiliyyah, ignorance." Muslim, recognizing the first sign is part of recognizing the Imam Allah has promised, Al-Mahdi. It is not enough to know about him. You must be ready to stand with him when the time comes. Final reminder, Allah says in the Quran, "So whoever hopes of meeting with his Lord, let him do righteous work and not associate in the worship of his Lord anyone." Surah Al-Kahf 18:110. Your preparation begins today with sincere worship, righteous deeds, and unwavering trust in Allah's promise. When the sign comes, may you be among those whose hearts are filled with certainty, whose feet move toward truth without hesitation, and whose names are written among the people of guidance. If you like this video and want to learn more about good ways to communicate with respect and kindness, then like this video to support the message. Subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. Share this video with your loved ones so that together we can spread more kindness. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. Tell me in comments what question has ever made you uncomfortable and how you like people to communicate with you. See you soon for a new video.